My name is Owen, and I live in Ashford. It's a small town in the Midwest, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where nothing interesting ever happens. Population around 8,000. We've got one main street, 2 gas stations, a Walmart on the edge of town, and not much else. I work at the Shell station on Route 9. Evening shift, 3 to 11. It's boring work, but it pays my bills. I live alone in a small apartment complex called Cedar Ridge, though there are no cedars and no ridge. Just a flat parking lot and a 2-story building with 20 units. It's not much, but it's home. Or at least it was. Everything started on January 15th. I was sitting in my living room, watching some crime show on TV, when the tornado sirens went off. If you've never heard tornado sirens, count yourself lucky. They're designed to be impossible to ignore. A rising and falling wail that cuts through everything. In the Midwest, you grow up with them. Monthly tests, usually on Wednesday afternoons, and real warnings when the weather gets bad. But that night, there was no weather. I got up and went to my window. The sky was completely clear. Stars were visible. No clouds at all. No wind. The trees in the parking lot weren't even moving. I grabbed my phone and checked the weather app. No alerts. No warnings. Nothing. The sirens kept wailing. They're supposed to run for 3 minutes during a warning. I counted. 3 minutes exactly, and then they stopped. I checked social media. My neighbors were posting about it. Everyone was confused. Some people thought it was a test, even though tests only happen on Wednesday at noon. Others figured it was a malfunction, some technical glitch. I went back to my show, forgot about it. I shouldn't have. The next night, January 16th, the sirens went off again. Same time, exactly 11. This time, I was already suspicious. I went to my window right away. Same thing. Clear sky, no storm, no wind. I threw on a jacket and went outside. A few other residents were in the parking lot, looking around with that same confused expression I probably had. Ruth, the older woman who lives below me, was standing on her balcony in her bathrobe. "This is the second night," she called down to me. "Something's wrong with the system." "Yeah, probably," I said. But I was looking around the parking lot, counting who was outside. That's when I noticed something odd. Carl, the guy in Unit 12, wasn't out. Carl always smokes on his balcony at night, pretty much every hour on the hour. His lights were on. I could see them through his window, but he wasn't at his usual spot. The sirens stopped after 3 minutes, just like the night before. Everyone went back inside. I tried to sleep, but I kept thinking about those sirens. The next day at work, my coworker Brian was already talking about it when I arrived. Brian's a high school kid, works part-time after school and on weekends. Good kid, usually pretty upbeat. But that day, he looked worried. "Dude, my mom's been acting so weird since those sirens started," he said, while restocking the cigarette display. "Weird how?" "She just stares out the window all night. I asked her what she's looking at, and she said, 'Don't you hear them calling?' I was like, 'Hear who?' And she wouldn't answer, just kept staring." I laughed it off, told him maybe she was sleepwalking or something, but I felt uneasy. That night, January 17th, I was ready. I stood at my window before 11, waiting. Right on schedule, the sirens started. I watched the parking lot below. Some people came out, but fewer than the night before. Most were staying inside now. But then I saw something that made my stomach drop. Several people were walking out of their apartments, not wandering around confused like the previous nights, walking with purpose, all of them heading in the same direction, west, toward the edge of town. I recognized Carl among them, and Mrs. Henderson from Unit 6. There were others I didn't know as well, maybe 8 or 9 total from my building alone. They weren't talking, weren't looking around, just walking, faces blank, like they were sleepwalking, but with their eyes open. "Carl!" I shouted from my balcony. "Hey, Carl!" No response. He just kept walking. I ran downstairs, caught up with Mrs. Henderson in the parking lot. "Mrs. Henderson, are you okay?" She walked right past me, didn't even glance in my direction. Her eyes were open but unfocused, staring at something I couldn't see. I followed them. I don't know why. Maybe I thought I could snap them out of it, whatever it was. They walked through the streets of Ashford, a silent procession. More people joined them from other buildings, other houses. By the time we reached the west side of town, there were maybe 15 people total. They were all heading toward the old water tower. The water tower has been there since the 50s, a massive rusty thing with Ashford painted on the side in faded letters. It's surrounded by a chain link fence, sitting on a patch of overgrown grass at the edge of town. Nobody goes there anymore. The group reached the fence and stopped, all at exactly the same moment. They just stood there, facing the tower, perfectly still. I hung back, watching from behind a parked car about 50 yards away. My heart was pounding. This wasn't right. None of this was right. I waited. 5 minutes, 10, 20. Then, all at once, they turned around. Same blank expressions, same silent march. They walked back the way they came, right past me like I didn't exist. I followed Carl back to the apartment complex, watched him climb the stairs to Unit 12, go inside, close the door. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I knocked on Carl's door before heading to work. He answered, looking completely normal. Annoyed, but normal. "What's up, Owen?" "Hey, did you go out last night? Around 11? "What? No. I was watching the game. Fell asleep on the couch. Why?" "I saw you walking toward the water tower with a bunch of other people." His face darkened. I don't know what kind of joke this is, but I didn't go anywhere. Stop making up stories about me. He slammed the door in my face. At work that day, Brian didn't show up for his shift. I called him, no answer. I mentioned it to Phil, my manager, along with the weird siren situation. Phil got quiet. He wouldn't look at me. "It's probably just kids," he muttered. "Kids messing with the emergency system." But his hands were shaking when he said it, and I noticed dark circles under his eyes, like he hadn't slept in days. January 18th, the 4th night. I decided to stay awake and watch. I sat up by my window with a thermos of coffee, waiting. At 11, the sirens started their wail. This time, even more people emerged. I counted at least 30 from my vantage point, all walking west toward the water tower. I grabbed my car keys and drove. I took the back roads, the ones that circle around the west side of town. There's a hill that overlooks the area where the water tower sits. I parked and watched. The walkers were gathering around the fence again, more than I'd seen before. But this time, something was different. The lights on the water tower were flickering, on and off, pulsing in a steady rhythm. I rolled down my window to get a better look. That's when I heard it. Under the fading wail of the sirens, there was another sound, a low humming coming from the direction of the water tower. Not mechanical. It sounded organic, almost like breathing. The walkers were swaying slightly, in time with the humming. And then I felt it, a pull, an urge to get out of the car, to walk toward the tower, to join them. My hand was on the door handle before I realized what I was doing. I forced myself to start the car, to drive away. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard they hurt. Over the next 3 days, the pattern continued. Sirens at 11. More people walking each night. I started recognizing most of them. Neighbors, customers from the gas station, people I'd seen around town my whole life. Brian came back to work on January 21st, but he was different. Quiet, distant, dark circles under his eyes, like Phil's. "You okay, man?" I asked. He smiled at me, but the smile was wrong. "Everything's fine, Owen. Everything's great." But his eyes were empty. The next day, January 22nd, I realized I was being watched. Phil kept staring at me when he thought I wasn't looking. 2 regular customers came into the store and just stood in the aisles. Not shopping, not browsing, just watching me. I walked up to one of them, a guy named Tom who usually bought lottery tickets every Friday. "Can I help you find something, Tom?" He smiled that same empty smile. "No thanks, Owen. Just looking." Then he left without buying anything. I called Ruth when I got home. She didn't answer. I went to her apartment and knocked. No answer, but I could hear movement inside. I was about to leave when the door opened a crack. Ruth's face appeared, looking terrified. She grabbed my arm and pulled me inside, quickly locking the door behind us. Her apartment windows were covered with blankets, every single one. "Ruth, what's going on?" "You haven't walked yet," she said. It wasn't a question. "No. Have you?" She shook her head. "I've been hiding, ever since the 3rd night. Owen, something is wrong with everyone who walks to that tower." She told me about her daughter, who lives on the other side of town. Her daughter went walking the 3rd night. The next day, Ruth visited her, and she seemed fine, normal. But Ruth noticed things. Her daughter kept staring out the window, kept talking about how beautiful it would be when everyone was together, how they were all being called home. Called home by what? Ruth had asked. Her daughter just smiled. "You'll understand soon, Mom. Everyone will." Ruth hadn't left her apartment since. We compared notes. We were the only 2 in the building who hadn't walked yet. Ruth thought it had something to do with the water tower, and I agreed. Then she told me something I didn't know. "That tower was built in the 1950s, she said. "But before that, there was something else there, an old cistern that went deep into the ground. My grandfather used to tell stories about it, said people would hear singing coming from it at night, beautiful singing that made you want to get closer." What happened? The town filled it in, poured concrete into it, then built the water tower over it. My grandfather said they were trying to seal something up, bury it. I remembered the humming I'd heard, the sound coming from below the tower. It's still there, I said quietly. Whatever was in that cistern, it's still there, and it's calling people. Using the sirens, Ruth whispered. The sirens are the signal, and people are answering. January 23rd. I was alone at work. Phil didn't show up. Brian didn't show up. The store was empty all evening. At 10:30, I locked up early and drove home. The streets were packed with people. They were standing outside their homes, waiting, all of them facing west, just standing there in silence. I navigated through them carefully, my car crawling down streets filled with motionless figures. They didn't move as I passed, didn't even seem to notice me. When I got home, Ruth was at my door, panicking. "They've been knocking," she said, her voice shaking. "The walkers. When they come back from the tower, they knock on my door. They try to get me to come out." I pulled her into my apartment and locked the door. We sat on the floor, away from the windows, waiting. At 11, the siren started. I peeked out the window. The parking lot was full of people, hundreds of them, all walking west. But some stayed behind. They stood at apartment doors, knocking softly, calling names. Then I heard my name. "Owen, come out. Come join us. It's beautiful. You'll understand." It was Carl's voice. Calm, gentle. Ruth was crying, covering her ears. The knocking got louder. More voices joined in. "Owen, Ruth, come with us. Come home." I felt the pull again, stronger than ever before. My hand reached for the doorknob without me telling it to. Ruth grabbed my arm, screaming at me to stop. I snapped out of it, pulled my hand back. The voices faded as the walkers left for the tower. Ruth and I collapsed on the floor, shaking. "We can't keep this up," I said. "Whatever is calling people is getting stronger." "We should leave," Ruth said. "Get in your car and just drive. Leave Ashford." I agreed. We'd leave at dawn before the next cycle started. But we didn't make it to dawn. At 10 that night, January 24th, the sirens started early. And they didn't stop. They kept wailing on and on, the sound drilling into my skull. I looked outside. Everyone was emerging, not just the walkers. Everyone. The entire town was moving toward the water tower. Ruth stood up. She was staring at the door. "Ruth?" She took a step toward it. "Ruth, no." I grabbed her arm. She fought me, stronger than she should have been. Her eyes were unfocused now, just like all the others. "I hear them," she whispered. "Owen, they're so beautiful. Come with me. Please come with me." She broke free, opened the door, and walked out. I was alone. I locked the door, pushed furniture against it. But I could feel it now, that pull. It wasn't just external anymore. It was inside my head. A voice. No, thousands of voices, singing in harmony, calling me home, telling me I was the last one. Everyone else had answered. The whole town had answered. And they were waiting for me. I went to the window one last time. The streets were empty. Everyone had gone to the tower. In the distance, I could see them. A massive crowd, thousands of people surrounding the water tower, and as I watched, they began to descend. Not climbing down, just sinking into the ground, the earth opening up to swallow them. But they weren't scared. They were smiling, all of them smiling. My legs started moving. I didn't want them to. I tried to stop them, but they moved anyway. I walked to the door, removed the furniture, opened it. The singing was so loud now, so beautiful. I understood what Ruth meant, what everyone meant. It is beautiful. The most beautiful sound I've ever heard. I walked down the stairs, through the parking lot, into the empty streets, toward the water tower, toward the singing, toward home. I passed darkened houses, abandoned cars. The whole town was already there, waiting for me. The last one, the final piece. When I reached the water tower, the ground around it was torn open, a massive hole descending into darkness. The entire population of Ashford stood around the edge. Their faces turned toward me, smiling, welcoming me. And from the darkness below, the singing rose, ancient and patient and hungry. It had been calling for so long, waiting for all of us. And now we were all finally here. I joined the circle, felt the ground shift beneath my feet. Everyone began to sink, slowly, gently, into the earth, into the darkness, into the source of the singing. And I realized, with my last rational thought, that the sirens were never a warning. They were a dinner bell, and the whole town had walked willingly into the mouth of something that had been feeding on the surface world for decades. Something that only needed to call and wait, because eventually everyone answers. The singing is so beautiful. I understand now. We all understand. We're going home. If you're reading this, if you live anywhere near Ashford, leave. Leave now, because the singing never stops. And eventually, you'll want to answer too. The tornado sirens in your town might go off tonight. There won't be a storm, but you'll walk anyway. We all do.